This video is one in a series of videos that cover database topics in 3 themes. We look at Oracle APEX, Application Express for web applications, relational database concepts for designing and building databases, and SQL, the programming language for working with a relational database. If you want to work with the video series, you can go to this URL to get the scripts and handouts. In this video, I'm going to continue to work with the master detail form that we've used in the last 2 videos. The master is person data and the detail is employee data. To start with, I'm just going to do a little cosmetic thing here. I'm going to change the navigation item title because I have 2 navigation items named the same and I want to be able to distinguish those. I'm going to refine the master detail form, and that's going to be primarily by adding LOVs, but we'll also hide the audit columns. The audit columns are date and timestamp columns that keep track of when a record was created in the table and when a record was modified in the table. So mainly we'll look at adding lists of values. So when somebody's entering data for a new record or modifying data in an existing record, that they are limited to a list of values. It helps the user decide what to put in there, and it gives us much more consistent data entry. We're going to make a few modifications to the master layout and then save that report so it becomes the default setting. We're going to test the form to make sure we can add a person record and also add a detail record. Finally, we'll take a quick look at how this application as it is right now will appear to an end user, someone not using a developer login. At the beginning of this video series, we created a testing end user so we could take a view of the application as a regular user. We'll check that out. So I'm logged into Animal Shelter in Apex. So I've launched the application. This is the development application, and I have people and people under the main category of people. I want to modify this one so that it has MD after it to signify it's a master detail. To do that, I can come up here to the tab for Application Builder and go to Shared Components and go to Navigation menu. Go to our one navigation menu, and then this would be the last menu item added. I will edit that, and I will simply change that to MD, M-D so that I know that that's the master detail. I'll apply that change. I'll come back to daily operations and do a refresh, and now I see the MD. So it's very quick and easy to make edits to the way menu items are titled. Now I want to run this, and so I'm looking at the person master and the related employee info if there is related employee info. And actually we know there's employee info because in a previous video we edited the SQL so that we only see person information for employees in this master detail. So first I'll do something with the master form. Let's collapse the menu, and I'm going to hide the 2 audit columns, the one that has a date for when the record was added and another one that we're not using yet, which is for date modified. So I'm going to edit this page, and I'll expand columns, and I will look at the columns in the master form. Down here we have date created and date modified, and I will hold down the shift key to do a multiple select, and let me get the right fields or right page items, and I'll come up here and I will select hidden and save that and run that. And so now we don't show those columns. Those are maintained by triggers, little bits of programming code, when things happen as you add or modify data. The other thing I want to do is I want to add the zip code LOV to this column, to this page item, I should say. But before I do that, I need to quickly look at the data dictionary and explain to you a mistake that I made when I laid out the data model and wrote the SQL scripts to create the tables. So I'm going to bring up the data dictionary that we have imported before. And looking at zip, I remember thinking about this, and even though I use the sequence and trigger for most of the tables, I at one point decided that I was not going to do that for the zip code table, that I was going to leave zip, the field zip that contains the zip code, as the primary key, and just show that as a contrast to using the surrogate key field like emp ID, pers ID, trans ID. But when I decided to go with zip, which I did designate as the primary key, I forgot to remove this field here, which is zip ID. And I will fix this error in probably the next video, but certainly in the next couple of videos. I will fix that when I do some other data cleanup in the database. So what I need to do is modify a zip code LOV that we have already created because it's not returning the right value. When it displays a city and state, it returns the zip ID, which is essentially useless in the example database that I have here. So let's go back to the form, and I'm going to edit this page, and I'll select zip as my page item, and I will switch it from text field to select list. Now I know I need to edit that LOV, but I'm going to go ahead and assign that LOV to this page item or field. As I scroll down, once I say LOV, then I have to come down and find the list of values and say what I'm going to use. And it's a shared component because we had a previous video where we made several LOVs. I will select zip list. Display extra values? No. Display null values? Yes. What to display in a null value? I'll just put a dash dash. And I will save and run that. So right now we're seeing zip is blank. Let's go back to Page Designer, select our application. I think I'll open it in a separate tab. Go to Shared Components, List of Values, and edit this LOV. So here's the code. If you watched the previous video, you would remember that we are concatenating, putting fields together into a single display column. City, followed by a comma and a space, and then the name of the state, and then a couple of spaces, and then the zip as a display. And the return value is not zip ID, but just zip. So I'm going to apply that change and go back to the form. So I did a refresh, and now we're seeing, actually we're not seeing the zip code itself. Now what we're seeing is city, comma, state, space, space, zip. My display's not quite wide enough here. So I can edit this column heading, and instead of it saying just zip, I could put city, state, zip, and save that change. But while I'm here, I'm going to make some other edits that are in the details section. So I'm going to come to columns in the employee info region, and for status, I will select that, come over to the properties and switch that to select list, scroll down. That's going to be from shared components because we already created these lists of values, and I'll do employee status, and then I'll save that. I'll do the same thing for role, select list, shared component, employee role, and save that. For supervisor ID, I will change this to select list, scroll down, shared component, and this will be the employee list. But here again, we're going to make a modification to the LOV. I'll save this, and then I'll run this. And so now if I wanted to edit this employee info, let's see, actually what I want to do is I want to switch to single row view. It'll be a little easier to see. I'll select edit, and now I can easily see that I have those drop-down lists. So here I have active, inactive. The role is employee, volunteer, or veterinarian. I'm going to go in and remove the display other values and allow a null value with a dash so we know that there's nothing there. The thing I need to edit here is for the employee is there are a few of these employees that are no longer active, so I need to go to my LOV and add a constraint, add something in a where clause that only allows us to see people listed that are currently active employees. So first let's edit. I will select status and role and scroll down. I guess I can also go ahead and do supervisor ID. They share this attribute. Remember, if they share the attribute, then you can make this modification. Okay, display extra values? No. Null value? Yes. What to display? Dash dash. So I'm making that change on all three. And I click Save. And then I'm going to come up here to the tabs for list of values. And I'm going to go over to employee list, go down to my code. Right now, I'm using the person table and the employees table. By doing that, I filter out any person that's not an employee, but I need to add something else here. I will add a where clause, and I'll say where status is equal to active. And I'm going on memory. I think that's the actual text. Remember that this data here in single quotes is case sensitive. So let's try it. I'll apply that change. I'll come back to person. I'll do a refresh. Go back to my single row view. Do my edit. I'm seeing the dash when I don't have a supervisor selected. And we're now seeing it without being able to count it. We are seeing a slightly shorter list of employees. Now the other thing I could do is take out volunteers and veterinarians, but I'm not going to do that right now. So far we have created a few forms, but we haven't added data through the forms. And so let's try adding data to this master detail. Here we have the person. If I do, let's see, I'll do an add row. Actually, and then I'm going to switch that over to single row view. I just find that easier to fill out in this small space. I'm going to do Felipe and his last name, Para, address 3165 North Elm, and the zip will be in Las Cruces, New Mexico 88011. Phone number, just make up something, and let's try saving that. So is it there? Let me do this. I'll do Felipe, and I don't find Felipe. So maybe it didn't save it. What do you think? You know, we have a filter on this so that we only see person records that are employees. Let's edit this. I'm in the persons region, and I'm going to edit the code. And I'm going to come in here and comment out the join with employees and click OK. We added that in a previous video. Save, run that, and there he is. I still have that filter in effect. So he is there, and I can now add an associated employee info record. So we have a little of a dilemma here because, let me remove this, if I don't filter out the non-employees, then I will get every person. So let me filter again on Felipe. Here's his record. Come over here and I'll do a single row view. I'll do an edit, and I will make this active, employee, supervisor. I'll pick one. I'm going to pick Doris Moore, 930. And the begin date, this date, and I will save that. So now we've tested, we've added a person and added an associated employee record. His person ID is 90156. We see that over here as the foreign key value, 90156. So we know the forms are working, the master form and the detail form. We can add data, and that's important to check for functionality. But we also have an issue in that we need to figure out how we want the end user to navigate through this application, looking at data and sometimes adding data or modifying data. So I'll come back to this in another video shortly. I want to remove this filter right now. And before I do anything else here, what I want to do is use a different web browser and log in as a regular end user so we can see how the end user will see this application. And if I make a change to the format or the filtering and layout of a particular form and save that, that default can be set for the end user. So I'm going to open up Firefox, and I'm going to log in as my end user for testing. I think I called it testing. I'll check my notes. So this brings up, let me switch back over to my developer account. What's the URL for my application? The URL for the application is this right here. So I can copy that and put it in another browser, and it will open our application. The things that come after the 107 are things related to this particular session that I'm logged into. You do not need those. So I'm going to switch back over to Firefox and do a paste and hit enter. And it's prompting me to log in. Notice though, it's not asking me for the workspace. I'm not going in as a developer. I'm going in as a regular user. So I'm going to try this. I think I called it testing, and see if I get in, and I do. Important thing to notice, there is no designer bar. I don't have the option to switch to page designer and make alterations to this. So if I come to people and people master detail, this is what I see. I'm seeing 1 through 5 because I made that rows per page setting and saved it. Let me come back over. I'm flipping back and forth between browsers. If I'm in Chrome, I'm in, as we see with the designer bar, I am in the developer mode. I can make edits. So if I come here and set this to, let's see, rows per page, it's currently the default is 5. So I'll go ahead and select 10, which is what I have here right now. But then I will come here to report, come to report, and I'll do a save. Default report saved for all users. Okay, so now when I come back to Firefox, I'm going to log out, come back in, and now I see that my default number of rows per page is set to 10. So I could have perhaps a common filtering thing that I want to set and save that as a developer as the primary report or the default report format, and everybody would log in and see that. However, each time they log in, they would have the option to make their own changes, and they can save a report as their own custom report. So when they log in, they can see their custom report. There's a lot of flexibility and functionality available in the interactive grid, which is what we're seeing for the master and the detail.